Welcome, spicy ladies. What happens when a strong mind is raised in a house that only celebrates control and obedience? That's the hidden battle many Sigma females face growing up with narcissistic parents. These are not the kind of parents who nurture independence or applaud your uniqueness. They're the kind who twist your confidence into defiance and call your boundaries disrespect. From the outside, everything might look normal. A structured home, a polite child, a family that seems close. But behind the curtain, there's a young girl learning how to tiptoe around emotional landmines. She learns early that love comes with conditions, that silence keeps the peace, and that her feelings are inconvenient unless they serve someone else. But here's the twist. Instead of becoming bitter or broken, the Sigma female becomes deeply aware. She sees through the manipulation. She starts asking questions no one around her wants to answer. And while her voice might be quiet at first, it grows into something fierce with time. If you've lived through this, understand something. You were not difficult. You were not ungrateful. You were just too awake in a house that needed you to stay asleep. The strength you've built didn't come from comfort. It came from surviving what others couldn't even see. You didn't imagine the weight you carried. And you're not wrong for wanting peace instead of performance. You are not the problem. You are the pattern breaker. And this is your story told honestly. Let's get started. Number 1. The Sigma is born in fire, not in peace. You don't become a Sigma female by accident. You don't just wake up one day and decide to live on your own terms. For many Sigma women, it all started in a home where love came with strings attached and where being yourself was treated like a problem. Growing up with narcissistic parents doesn't leave room for softness. You learn early that being open gets used against you. If you cry, you're weak. If you speak up, you're disrespectful. So what do? You go quiet. You watch everything. You build a world in your mind where you can breathe without walking on eggshells. That's where the Sigma female begins. Picture a girl who sits quietly at the dinner table, not because she has nothing to say, but because she already knows how the conversation will go. She knows the moment she disagrees, it will turn into a lecture or a guilt trip. So, she learns to save her words for people who actually listen. That habit never really leaves her. It becomes part of who she is. Over time, this girl grows into a woman who doesn't beg for attention. She doesn't chase approval. Not because she's cold, but because she's exhausted from playing roles just to keep the peace. So, she walks her own path. Not louder, just clearer. What sets the Sigma female apart is not pride. It's clarity. She's had enough confusion, enough fake apologies, enough pretending everything is fine just to avoid conflict. She would rather be alone and real than surrounded and empty. The fire she came from didn't destroy her. It refined her. It burned off the need to please. It stripped her of illusions. What's left is someone who sees things for what they are and moves accordingly. That's what makes a Sigma female different. She wasn't raised to be powerful. She was pushed to a point where being powerful was the only way to survive. Right now, if you're still watching, I hope this video can help you. Your comments motivate me so much, so I can make more videos which you like. So hit that subscribe button and leave me a message. Let's continue. Number 2, they don't hate their parents. They outgrow them. There comes a point in every Sigma female's life when something quietly shifts. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with a big argument or a family fallout. One day, she simply stops explaining herself, stops hoping they'll change, stops shrinking herself to fit into the version of a daughter they once tried to design. Sigma females don't hate their parents. They just outgrow the emotional games. They stop giving weight to opinions that were never rooted in love, but in control. It's not bitterness that drives them. It's clarity. Picture a woman who spent years learning to decode her parents' moods. She'd replay conversations in her head, wondering if she said something wrong. She'd show up to every event, smile on her face, even when her heart wasn't in it. But with time, she began to notice the pattern, the guilt, the passive comments, the constant pressure to keep playing a part she never signed up for. Eventually, she stopped. She didn't cut anyone off with fireworks. She just started investing in herself, her peace, her truth, her space. Her silence began to speak louder than any confrontation ever could. That's the part narcissistic parents can't handle. Not the distance, not the silence, but the fact that she's no longer emotionally anchored to them. She no longer spins in circles around their approval. She's not fueled by resentment. She's just free. And that kind of freedom is powerful. It means she can love people without losing herself. It means she can choose connection, not obligation. It means she can walk into a room and feel whole without needing anyone to confirm it. So, no, she doesn't hate her parents. She simply stepped into a version of herself that doesn't require their permission. And once a Sigma female finds that level of peace, there's no going back. Number 3, they learn to love without needing control. A Sigma female understands something that most people spend their whole lives trying to figure out. Real love never feels like pressure. It never feels like fear, and it never asks you to lose yourself just to keep the peace. She learned this the hard way. Growing up, love was complicated. One moment she felt accepted. The next she was being manipulated with guilt, silence, or emotional bribes. She'd hear things like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You're being ungrateful," whenever she tried to set a boundary. That kind of love was conditional. It came with rules that only served the one holding the power. So she adapted not by becoming cold, but by becoming aware. She started noticing how real love should feel. It should feel safe, steady, quietly strong. No scorekeeping, no silent punishments, no invisible chains wrapped in obligation. This is why when she loves now, it looks different. She doesn't hover. She doesn't keep tabs. She doesn't need someone to report their every move. Not because she doesn't care, but because she respects freedom, hers and theirs. She knows that the moment love starts to feel like control, it starts to rot. Picture her in a relationship. She's the kind who gives space, not because she's detached, but because she believes trust grows best when it's not being choked. She checks in, not checks on. She supports without smothering, and she expects the same in return. Some people misunderstand that and think she's distant, but that's because they confuse obsession with care. She's not building a bond to cage anyone. She's building something honest, something solid. She doesn't love to keep people close. She loves so they can grow, even if that means growing in different directions. That's the kind of love only someone who's lived through manipulation can understand. And it's exactly what makes a Sigma female rare. She loves with both her heart and her wisdom. Number 4, they reconstruct identity from ashes. There's something powerful about a Sigma female who finally decides to unlearn everything she was told about herself. For years, she was handed labels she never asked for. Too quiet, too distant, too intense. She was told what to be, how to behave, and who she should become to be accepted. And because those messages came from people she trusted, parents, teachers, family, they stuck. But there comes a moment when she looks in the mirror and realizes none of it belongs to her. The identity she's been carrying is a patchwork of other people's expectations. That's when the reconstruction begins. It's not pretty. It's not fast. It's not something you post about. It often starts in silence. In the middle of the night, after a fight, after a breakdown, after yet another moment where she realizes she's living a life that doesn't feel like her own, and so she tears it down. She stops pretending to enjoy what drains her. She lets go of relationships that only survive on guilt. She starts questioning every belief she was raised with, not out of rebellion, but because she's ready to build something honest. This process feels like walking through fire. But it's in those ashes that the real Sigma female begins to rise. Take the woman who was always labeled as difficult because she spoke her mind. She used to bite her tongue to keep the peace. Now she speaks up with calm certainty. No apology in her tone. Or the woman who was called selfish for wanting space. Now she guards that space because she knows it's where she grows best. This is what makes the Sigma female different. She didn't just survive the lies. She dismantled them. She didn't just walk away from the noise. She created a voice of her own. And every piece of who she is now was earned. Not given, not handed down. Built day by day from the ashes of who they told her to be. Number 5, they are not bitter. They are sharp. A Sigma female doesn't walk around with a chip on her shoulder. She doesn't carry anger like a trophy or use her past as an excuse to lash out. People may mistake her quiet strength for bitterness, but they're wrong. She's not bitter. She's sharp. There's a big difference. Bitterness is heavy. It keeps people circling the same pain over and over. It clouds judgment. It feeds resentment. But a Sigma female doesn't have time to stay stuck in old wounds. She's learned to take that pain and put it to work. Not by forgetting it, but by using it as fuel to sharpen her instincts, her decisions, and her direction. Think about someone who got burned by manipulation early on. Maybe it came from family, maybe from someone she trusted. Most people either shut down or start building walls so high that nobody can reach them. But the Sigma female does something different. She doesn't block everyone out. She just watches more closely. She learns how to read between the lines. She notices the little things, tone of voice, hesitation, how people treat others when they think no one is watching. She doesn't carry grudges. She carries knowledge. This is the kind of woman who remembers how it felt to be dismissed or underestimated. And instead of stewing in it, she turns it into strength. Now she's the one making the decisions, the one who walks away early, the one who doesn't explain herself over and over just to be respected. So no, she's not bitter. She's aware. She's wise. She's alert. And that sharpness, it wasn't gifted. It was earned through every hard lesson she never forgot. Number 6, they stop playing the role assigned to them. In a narcissistic family, roles are handed out like name tags. You do not choose them. They are chosen for you. Maybe you were the one who always got blamed when things went wrong. Maybe you were praised only when it served someone else's image. Or maybe you were the one nobody really saw, sitting quietly in the background, never asked what you truly felt. The Sigma female knows this story too well. She played those roles for years. She learned how to keep the peace, how to keep quiet when something fell off, how to pretend that everything was fine even when it wasn't. But eventually something inside her clicks. She starts asking herself, who would I be if I stopped playing this part? That single question becomes the start of everything. She stops performing. She stops trying to meet the expectations that never really fit her. And slowly she starts telling the truth, not just to others, but to herself. It can feel awkward at first, like stepping off a stage after years of pretending. People around her may not like the change. Some will call her distant. Others might say she has changed. And they are right. She has. She is no longer performing for a script she never wrote. Think of the woman who was always expected to fix things, hold the family together, or never speak her mind. One day, she chooses peace over pretending. She begins building her life around who she really is, not who they needed her to be. This is the path of the Sigma female. She breaks the pattern by refusing to play along. She does not beg to be understood. She simply walks in truth. And once she steps out of the role she was assigned, she never steps back in. That is not rebellion. That is liberation. Number 7, they turn childhood pain into adult clarity. A Sigma female doesn't run from her childhood pain. She doesn't bury it or sugarcoat it with fake smiles and forced positivity. She sits with it. She looks it dead in the eye. Because for her, ignoring pain only gives it more power. Facing it, that's where her clarity begins. She remembers the moments, the way a careless comment could stick in her chest for years, or how silence from the people who were supposed to protect her felt louder than anything else. Most people try to forget those memories. She doesn't. She studies them. She rewinds the emotional tape, not to relive it, but to understand what it turned her into and what it tried to keep her from becoming. It's like someone handed her a puzzle made from broken pieces. And instead of tossing it away, she sat down and started putting it together, one piece at a time. The lies she was told, the needs that were ignored, the patterns she saw but couldn't name. She gathers all of it not to hold grudges, but to hold wisdom. This is why Sigma females seem so emotionally precise. They know where their wounds are, and they've done the work to stop them from bleeding into every new chapter. They don't blame their past, but they definitely don't pretend it didn't shape them. Think of the woman who was constantly told she was too much, too emotional, or too strong-minded. Years later, instead of dialing herself down, she builds a life that matches her full volume. That takes clarity. That takes courage. So when people wonder how she can read situations so quickly or set boundaries without guilt, it's because she earned that clarity through years of honest reflection. Pain gave her the map. Truth gave her the compass. And now she moves with eyes wide open. Not bitter, not broken, just awake. That's the Sigma way. Number 8. They break generational curses quietly. A Sigma female doesn't announce that she's breaking cycles. She just does it quietly, consistently in her own way. She grew up watching dysfunction play out like a broken record. Maybe it was emotional manipulation dressed up as love. Maybe it was constant criticism passed off as tough parenting. Or maybe it was the silent treatment used as punishment. Whatever the pattern, she saw it for what it was. Not love, but control. Not care, but damage passed down like an old coat no one thought to throw away. She could have repeated it. She could have copied what was familiar. But the Sigma female doesn't do familiar just because it's comfortable. She questions it. She studies it. And then she decides whether or not it deserves a place in her life. This is where her power really shows. She does not need to cut people off loudly or post about how she's healing. She just begins to live differently. If she becomes a mother, her children will grow up hearing apologies when she gets it wrong. They'll feel safe enough to speak honestly. They won't be punished for having emotions. That right there is a massive shift. And it often starts with just one woman choosing to pause and say, "No, we are not doing this anymore." And even if she never becomes a parent, the legacy still changes. Her friendships are healthier. Her relationships are built on honesty, not survival tactics. Her home becomes a space where people breathe freely, not walk on eggshells. That is her rebellion. Quiet, unshakable, intentional. She doesn't need recognition for doing what others refuse to face. The reward is in the peace she lives with and the future she is rewriting, one clear choice at a time. And that is how the Sigma female breaks curses. Not with noise, but with a kind of self-respect that echoes louder than any family tradition ever could. Number 9. They love from a distance when necessary. A Sigma female doesn't believe that love always means closeness, especially when it comes to people who have hurt her over and over again. She understands that some bonds can stay intact without being front and center in her life. That kind of love is quiet. It is respectful, but it has boundaries. If she grew up with a narcissistic parent, she knows the emotional games too well. The guilt trips, the shifting rules, the moments where love felt more like pressure than protection. She spent years trying to make it work, hoping they'd see her clearly, hoping something would finally change. But after enough letdowns, she stops asking for change. She starts protecting her peace instead. This isn't about revenge or cutting people off out of anger. It's about self-respect. It's about finally realizing that love without boundaries turns into self-destruction. So, she takes a step back. She calls less. She shares less. She no longer shows up out of obligation. And she no longer feels guilty for doing so. Imagine someone who still sends a birthday message, still prays for their well-being, but no longer involves them in the parts of her life that matter most. That's the Sigma female's version of love. Firm, honest, and from a safe distance. It may confuse others. Some will say she's cold. Some will call her unforgiving. But they don't understand what it took for her to get here. She didn't give up on love. She gave up on the illusion that love should cost her peace. So yes, she still cares, but she does it with caution. She keeps her heart intact by no longer placing it where it gets crushed. That's what real strength looks like. Not the ability to walk away with rage, but the courage to love wisely, even when it means loving from afar. Number 10. They create peace by cutting the noise. A Sigma female knows that peace is not something you stumble into. It is something you build, protect, and sometimes fight for, even if that means making decisions no one else understands. She learned early on that not all noise comes from outside. Sometimes it comes from the people closest to you. The constant drama, the emotional guilt, the subtle digs hidden in polite words. For For a long time, she thought maybe she was the problem. Maybe if she tried harder, explained more, stayed calmer, things would get better. But they didn't. And one day it hit her. Peace doesn't come from trying to fix broken relationships. It comes from knowing when to step away from them. She doesn't slam doors. She doesn't make a scene. She simply makes a decision. If someone constantly drains her energy, leaves her confused after every conversation, or twists her words into something they can use against her, she stops engaging. That includes anyone, even a parent. Picture a woman who always answered the phone out of guilt, not love. Every call left her anxious. Every visit came with tension. After years of emotional confusion, she finally stops pretending. She stops picking up every time she replies later. She creates space where there used to be chaos and something amazing happens. The quiet feels like home. It is not about holding a grudge. It is not about cutting people off to prove a point. It is about choosing her mental and emotional health over a cycle that never ends. The Sigma female is not trying to control others. She is simply removing the noise so she can hear her own voice again. That is her peace. And once she finds it, she does whatever it takes to protect it, no matter who disagrees. Because at the end of the day, peace is not a gift. It is a boundary, and she has finally learned how to draw it. Number 11. They refuse to be parentified or guilt-tripped. The Sigma female didn't get the luxury of a typical childhood. While other kids were learning how to be kids, she was learning how to emotionally carry adults who should have known better. She became the peacekeeper in a storm she never started. The one who soothed the parents' anger. The one who held everything together while her own world was silently falling apart. And for a while, she thought that was normal. But somewhere along the line, she woke up. Maybe it was during a conversation with a friend who had boundaries. Maybe it was after one too many phone calls that left her exhausted. Or maybe it was the day she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself anymore. That's when something shifted. She realized she had been carrying emotional weight that was never hers to begin with. And it stopped there. The Sigma female no longer lets guilt decide what she does. Just because someone gave her life doesn't mean they own it. If a parent calls only to unload their chaos, she doesn't drop everything anymore. If a family member tries to make her feel bad for setting boundaries, she doesn't fall for it. She's not cold. She's clear. She knows the difference between love and emotional blackmail, between helping someone and being used as a crutch. That clarity didn't come easy. It came from years of feeling like she was never enough, no matter how much she gave. Now she protects her energy, like her life depends on it, because it does. She has learned that being the strong one doesn't mean sacrificing herself. It means recognizing when the emotional roles in a family are completely backward and refusing to play along anymore. That's the quiet power of the Sigma female. She will love deeply, but not blindly. She will give, but not at the cost of her soul. And no amount of guilt will ever make her forget that again. Number 12. They master the art of emotional invisibility. The Sigma female doesn't explode when she's angry. She doesn't break down when she's hurt. And it's not because she doesn't feel things deeply. It's because she learned early on that showing too much emotion around certain people only made things worse. Growing up with narcissistic parents teaches you one hard truth. Your feelings are not safe in their hands. If she cried, they'd mock her. If she got excited, they'd belittle her. If she spoke up, they'd turn it into a personal attack. So over time, she adapted not by becoming numb, but by becoming invisible. She learned how to speak without revealing anything. How to smile when she was screaming inside. How to observe instead of react, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. It's like playing emotional chess while everyone else is just swinging wildly. She learned how to stay calm even in a storm. How to process her feelings on her own time, in her own space, without giving anyone the power to twist them against her. People sometimes mistake that for coldness, but they have no idea how much self-control it takes to stay centered when the people closest to you constantly try to push your buttons. She doesn't let others read her easily. And that is intentional because the moment someone believes they can predict her reactions, they will try to use them against her. In a world that feeds on emotional overexposure, the Sigma female becomes unreadable by design. She keeps her inner world private like a locked vault. Not because she doesn't trust herself, but because she doesn't trust people who haven't earned it. This isn't about hiding. It's about strategy, about survival, about protecting what's sacred. Because the more invisible her emotions are, the more control she has over her story. And that's how she stays free. What do you do when the people who were supposed to love you only loved what you could give them? That is the silent question every Sigma female raised by narcissistic parents has wrestled with for years. And the answer she finds is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet. It is steady. It is powerful. She learns to separate love from obligation. She learns that being loyal to someone who drains you is not noble. It is self-abandonment. So she stops trying to fix people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She draws the line not to punish, but to protect. That's not cold. That's wisdom earned through survival. The pain of growing up with narcissistic parents never disappears completely, but she no longer lets it shape her choices. She doesn't carry the guilt. She doesn't carry the shame. What she carries now is clarity, and that clarity lets her choose peace, not just for herself, but for the next chapter, for the family she may build, for the life she's creating with her own hands, far from the chaos she once called home. If this is your story, let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are forged. The fact that you see through manipulation, that you crave peace over performance, that you do not beg for attention or chase empty praise, none of that makes you hard to love. It makes you hard to fool. You're not the black sheep. You are the blueprint. You are the one who said no more. You are the one who walked away from the fire and chose to build something better. And that right there is your power. You turn survival into sovereignty. Keep going. You are not alone. You're just ahead of your time. Stay true to yourself. To all the spicy ladies make life beautiful, thank you for watching and God bless.